Oh, goody, there it is. Way to go, Tim.
Back up in here in the Velican area. I'm walking from the big house back down to the pit house side there, over this trail right here. I think about all the different ancestors of mine that may have walked down this trail, this path and stuff. A friend of mine said, oh, they ran by canoe. I said, well, during the high water and stuff like that there, they didn't go by canoe too much on that high water. So a lot of this travel was next to the river. I see it. I feel that, you know, my ancestor did a lot of traveling on the ground. And this old path here that I'm walking now, it really makes me feel proud that I'm walking the path of my ancestors. Yes. We were talking about earlier about the extinction clause, my court case, something in the lines of this court case hopefully will bring out the fact that this particular area, although it has no existing huge band or tribe of Snakes in it now, at one time, what you look at the pit house site, you read the historical records and stuff of first contact people in this area, and the Snakes people in this area were numbers in the thousands because of the diseases of smallpox, because of adverse conditions, changings of economy, different things like that there. I believe that, yeah, the numbers got dwindled down to nothing. You were forced to live in a way at that time because things weren't just going your way as a native person. Historically, my hunting case, the one that's in the court now, started in 2010, where I harvested an elk in this area right here. The part of the game officers coming to the area here determined that yes, I have harvested an elk and stuff. From that point in time there, we started court proceedings. Other people of my band and stuff have tried to call for recognition in this area, but for whatever reason, stuff like that there, never got to the ears of the government, the public and stuff like that. Got more to the public than anything, I think, but never to the government. I believe through my court case, things may reverse or turn around a little bit in that area to get the government to look at my point of view that this is my homeland here, that I was my ancestors were here, and it wasn't for my ancestors being here, I wouldn't be here in front of this camera today. That part there, going back, I'm gonna give you a little oral history that my grandmother on my father's side gave me. That her grandfather was living just south of the 49th parallel here, in a place called Kelly Hill, and he heard that the United States and Canada were making a split. All right, he didn't like the United States very much at all and stuff like that. So he took the family that was on the west side of the Columbia, moved them over into the Cabo Valley, over into the east side of the Columbia River, thinking he was now safe in Canada. All right. They said he died and he was buried someplace there in the Cabo Valley. For whatever reason, they started dwindling the reserves. At one time, the Cabo reservations in circumference 1/3 of the state of Washington, which was Pend Oreille County, Stevens County, Ferry County, and Okanagan County. And then it just kept shrinking smaller and smaller and smaller till it got to my grandmother's father, old Paul, who was living in the Cabo Valley at that time. And they said, now we're going to move you from Stevens County over into Ferry County.
Messages.
And they said, no, you can't bother me, because my father said, I'm here in Canada. We've came across the river. We're safe now. And then the government officials told old Paul, no, you're not in Canada. Canada is an imaginary line north of you here. You can't see it, but it's just, that's Canada, and this is the United States. And the stories and stuff I hear of old Paul and stuff like that, he never would believe that there's this imaginary line that separated two countries. So, and the fact that when the missionaries came to register the native people over in the Ferry County area, and they came to old Paul and stuff like that, they asked him what his name was, and he said it's Paul Helleskochen. And the missionaries couldn't spell Helleskochen, and so they said, well, your first name now and make that your last name. And then they give him another missionary name. From that point in time there, my grandmother's father never liked the name that they gave him. And so all the documents you see that he wrote on or signed for and stuff like that, he put OLD, Paul. That's what, he was at the age of 35 at that time, which was considered old. And so that's what, then so forth on the rest of his life and all the rest of the documents that he signed, he just put OLD, Paul, old Paul. From the point in time there, my grandmother, like I said, she informed me about me being a lakes person, that I equivocated to a small lake that was by my residence there, and it wasn't until a little later on in schooling and stuff that I learned that the upper Arrow Lakes here is where we originated from. The road blockade that we did in 1989 was over some disturbance of the graveyards here and pit houses and stuff in this area right here. We came up into this area and we did the stoppage of the road for almost dang near 3 years, and for that fact there, the government finally won the case of building the road, and they did build the road. It's an irony that some of the people that were at that road blockade are not with me here today. And I think about that every time I come across that bridge and stuff and coming up into this area and drive on that road where we was blockade and stuff like that there. And so I think of you, Jim Swan and Cindy Fry and Milani and Koos. Yes, Koos. Some of the different people are not with us today. I miss those guys. I love their attitude, their fortitude and stuff like that there. For what purpose that I came here to do and was elected to do and volunteered to do, and coming up into this area and starting a court case and hunting. They researched my ancestry, this here, that there, a number of different people and stuff like that there. Because of my great-grandmother Justine and stuff like that there being full-blooded Canucks, my grandmother on my father's side being full-blooded Canucks and stuff. they decided that through the court documents and stuff, this couldn't be tore down. And when I came up into this area and was hunting, I hunted a number of times way back in the 80s there. Koos and I went out in here and we harvested a deer. The game officers came at that time down to our camp down by the pit houses down there, and they just looked at the deer hanging there and looked at us and said, kind of shrugged their shoulders and went the other way. So for the matter of fact that I came up here and harvested game, and I'm taking it to court, took this here particular case to court, in a meaningful way that I want to introduce the government that I'm back, that I'm not extinct. All right? Like I said, if it wasn't for these people that once held this land, hunted in this land, lived in this land, harvested in this land, and are buried in this land, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be standing here in front of this camera here today. Thank you. Reintroducing myself as Rick Dizitel, or Richard Dizitel, as the court proceedings see me as, here in the Balakan area. We're standing here overlooking Frog Mountain in this area right here. One of the legends and stuff that was told to me about Frog Mountain here was that at a particular time in history, my native clan or tribe, the Canucks, were down in the southern part of their territory, which would be down in the United States now. But for whatever reason, they was being held down there. They was down there because of intertribal wars or whatnot, but they was starving to death. And because there was no fire suppression in those days, so the lightning struck and it was just, the forest would burn until the snows came. That particular part of the country down there, mostly sagebrush country and stuff like that, there was burn off. There was no food or nothing for the animals. And so it was said that my ancestors went into the sweat and prayed for game, to find game and stuff like that here. One of the parts that my grandmother would tell me that at that particular time, if they found a deer track out in the snow and stuff like that there, they would go find the bestest young guys that they had, and they would follow and track that deer till they got tired, and they'd bring in some more young guys and they would follow that deer and track. The game was so scarce and stuff at that time. And so the elders and stuff were at the sweat and they was praying for this guidance to find the game. And through the sweat and stuff, they came out, and what they saw was this vision of a frog. And they came out and they saw this frog sitting out there. And the vision told them to follow the frog and you'll find the game. And so as they was hopping around there, watch out, and the people were following the frog and just following the frog, and as it was hopping around there, and they kept going and going, and they said when the frog stops hopping, and then as you followed the frog, it will tell you where the game is at. That's to be where the game is at. And so the legend has it that my ancestors were down in the southern part of the territory at that time, and they followed the frog up into this area, hopping and hopping and hopping and hopping, and they was following the frog. And then they said whenever the frog stops, it says that's where you'll find the game. And so they followed the frog, and then the frog stopped. And then that's where the frog stopped, is right up there. And this particular area right here is where I know my grandmother would tell me that old Paul would come up into this area every fall. This is at that particular time there, just to get the game that they needed to survive the winter and stuff like that there, because down in that part of the country there, there was actually being held on reservations and whatnot. But they knew that this part of the legends had told them that in this area was the game and stuff to get them. So as there was a nomadic people, and we went from here to the fishery, to the root bearing country and stuff like that there, we could live on the berries and we could live on the fish, but we needed some meat. All right, and the frog told us where we could come to have the meat. In my hunting in this area, to significantly bring this to a court decision, hopefully, the extinction clause that will hopefully come out of this here particular case and whatnot that we're working with, my relatives, my friends, my Canucks people, stuff like that, will be able to follow their ancestral roots up here. Maybe come back to that nomadic life of following the roots in the springtime, coming up the river and harvesting the salmon, and coming up into this area in the fall and winter time to harvest their meat. That their traditional path and stuff like that there is all over this part of the country. And I love to walk that path because it gives me great comfort in knowing that I'm walking the same ground that my ancestors walked at one time. Yes. Thank you. We got Frog Mountain over my shoulder here. What it is, I was relating to Tom and Glenn about some of my family history, and that my grandmother conveyed to me that I've had members on both sides of my family demised by one or the other. And the fact that my grandmother was telling me a story about one of her uncles that was got somewhat intoxicated down in the Fort Spokane area and was imprisoned down there, and they put him in the cell. Well, the next morning he got up and the prison door wasn't locked, so he just walked out. And the soldiers there told him, "Halt, halt, halt." And of course he didn't speak any American or English. All he spoke is the native tongue, and he didn't understand what they were saying, so he just kept on walking. Well, at one point in time, the only way the soldiers thought they could stop him is they fired and shot him dead. And that was that part there that would be on my father's side of the tree there. And then on my mother's side of the tree, I've had a Canucks member killed some of my Fry side of the family. It happened down in the Kettle Falls area, where the Canucks were living or somewhat staying on the west side of the Columbia River and at the Kettle Falls there, and most of the non-native people were living on the east side of that. And the dispute of the native people, the Canucks people, said that someone stole their dog, and they accused the non-native community of stealing their dog. Well, for whatever reason, the Canucks people were very upset, and they was going to go to war over this dispute of this lost dog. And for one reason or another, it would be my grandfather's father and his brother George and Richard, my grandfather's father, found the dog, and they sent word across the river there that they found the dog and that they was bringing it back. Well, when Richard and George loaded up the dog and the canoe was going across the river, it said that one of the native people that heard about the war party that was going to take place on the other side of the river was not informed about them bringing the dog back. Well, he saw the two non-native people in the canoe with the dog, and he thought that these were the culprits that stole the dog. He took his bow and shot and killed George. From that point in time there, they brought the canoe ashore and they captured Richard, which would be my grandfather's father, and held him, and they was going to kill him. My great-grandmother Justina, this is where she comes into the picture. And something like the Sacagawea, and this here's told story, but it's in the papers. She rescued my grandfather's father late that night, cut him loose, and just like in the Lewis and Clark acquisition, with a baby tied on her back, with Richard under her wing and stuff like that there, they fled the area, the Kettle Falls area, went over a range of mountains over into the Pend Oreille, escaped the war party and whatnot. From that point in time, they settled over in the upper panhandle of Idaho, over there at Bonner's Ferry. At that time there, Richard, he became a produce manager, you might say. They raised a great big garden in Bonner's Ferry, and they would take their produce. This is the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles from Kettle Falls, but they would take this produce, load it in a wagon with horses. It's got pictures of it there at Myers Falls there. The building's still standing there in Kettle Falls, but it shows his team of horses and wagon, and they're delivering the produce to Myers Falls there, out of Bonner's Ferry, Idaho, which is somewhat of a feat. I think it's like a 7-day trip from by horse and wagon. from Bonners Ferry at that time. So that part there. But so I have had both sides of the family, one side killed by natives, the other side killed by non-natives. It's an irony that I can't pass on to anything else there, but it's just a family story. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Wow. Amazing. That video we just watched. Oh, welcome to the Canuck and Yankee show, February 6th, 2022. Today we're covering a more or less the legal aspects of the Indigenous people, Aboriginals, Indians, First Nations, whatever. And that video that we just watched was from a Sinixt, S-I-N-I-X-T, elder. They're located in the northern part of Washington State and the southern part of southeastern British Columbia, the territory that I live in. And I was privileged to be able to shoot that. And for those of you that didn't catch the whole thing, the Yankee can probably put it in the show notes, or it is in the show notes. No, it's not yet. But anyway, what I took away from that was this person and the people decided to pursue legal avenues. He harvested an elk and let himself, actually turned himself in or allowed himself to be arrested, took it to court in his native rights as a Sinixt, which is recognized in the United States but not in Canada. And these people hold special passports. They can go back and forth across the border, but he couldn't hunt in his traditional area. I shot that just before he went to the Supreme Court of Canada to plead his case after winning the cases in the lower courts, but they was appealed by the government of BC, and he won. So now the Sinixt are recognized as a tribe here in Canada. Again, it shows the commitment. And also in the video, he shared with us that even the tribes don't always get along.
Now. I think I found
but the most important thing to him was the traditions. So thank you very much, Yankee, for showing that. And definitely for those of you that are interested, check the whole thing out. And it should be on a lead-in of the YouTube show. So how's it going, Yankee? You doing all right down there?
I just got it into the show notes. It's there.
All right, that's really nice. We got everything that we use pretty much in the show notes. We even got more than we use because we can't use it all. And I think we could probably just move right along. And I think we had a super short YouTube video at the top. Yeah, why don't you just play that? It's just a guy who talks about 53 seconds or something. Then I'm going to quote from some articles, and then we'll move on with some more videos, I think.
All right, hold on. I just got to...
Yeah, it's all good. Hey, how's everybody doing? I'm doing pretty good. It's sunny today. You can see it's really sunny. I'm going to start putting up curtains. Probably start broadcasting. Next week, I'll be broadcasting from the porch with the big screen TV because we're going to watch the Super Bowl. The Bengalis, the Bengals, the Bungles. They were last year. They're the Bungles this year.
The Bungles.
Now they're the Bengals. And that team from LA that used to be, didn't they used to be in San Diego? And they moved, right? San Diego Rams?
I can't remember. I think it was San Diego, yeah.
Yeah, who cares? Anyway, it'll be a good excuse to have a party. That's for sure.
All right, so I got the treaty rights YouTube queued up.
Yeah, I see him. I see the guy.
We're doing this?
Yeah, it's only 53 seconds. So he just really dryly talks about the day. You go back to camera view.
Canada was settled by Europeans, a wide range of promises were made to Aboriginal communities in the form of treaties and other land arrangements.
Yeah, I wrote.
Through treaties that were based on coexistence between two societies, First Nations have acquired treaty rights in exchange for the transfer of land to be enjoyed by mainstream Canadian society. The federal government has an obligation to act for the benefit of status registered First Nations peoples because of treaty obligations, the Indian Act, and subsequent amendments to the Indian Act. Aboriginal and treaty rights in existence in 1982 are constitutionally protected.
All right. That's
What's it?
that. Yeah.
Oh,
Short
cool.
one, about 50 seconds there.
Yeah, why don't you go back to camera view, because I don't think there's anything really very visual in these articles. And I'll just read through them really quick as I can, while still being succinct. Succinct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Succinct. Yeah. That
Oh.
is a word. Yeah.
All right, the
Be
first thing,
concise.
comes from the link from Indigenous Awareness Canada.com. Very simple. In 1876, our Canadian government passed the Indian Act to put into law our federal government's responsibilities to First Nations people and lands reserved for First Nations government. Sounds really warm and fuzzy, right? Okay. Now here's what sort of really happened. Next thing is from indigenousfoundations.arts, University of British Columbia.ca, ubc.ca. Now, during settlement and colonization, treaties were negotiated between the Crown, which we call the government, and local Aboriginal populations, guided by the Royal Proclamation of 1763. The proclamation was a British Crown document that acknowledged British settlers would have to address existing blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they had to deal with these people. And Aboriginal rights, for the rights set out in the treaty, basically, they had various treaties with different entities, otherwise known as tribes. It wasn't really a nation as much as it was a bunch of tribes. And then it goes on to say that colonial governments in Canada initially practiced a policy of extinguishment. I'll let that soak in. That was the policy, and that goes to the residential schools as well, which we'll talk about in a minute, which meant the Aboriginal people's rights would be surrendered or legislated away, often in exchange for treaty rights. In other words, we'll give you some treaty rights, and then you lose all your other rights. Blah, 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 blah. And then it goes on. Over time, however, many Aboriginal people found that the Canadian state continued to subjugate them and infringe upon them in the very rights they thought would be respected. In other words, they made the treaties and said, we're going to be really nice to you and let you hunt and do all these things. And then they kind of changed it. Similar to in Montana, the Flathead Reservation was originally only for natives. And then they decided that it was too good for just them, so now other people can buy into it. But anyway, Indigenous rights to hunt and fish have been limited by constitutional amendment, federal legislation, in some instances by provincial laws. The rights to hunt have been limited by these things. And so that's basically it. In a nutshell, I encourage you to read the whole articles, but that kind of goes over the situation. It's basically I guess they were what they call Indian givers, and I think that means that they promised they would give them something, but they didn't, as opposed to Indians don't respect themselves or people. Yeah, basically that's it. And I think we got a very short video.
Residential schools.
Yeah, you can go back to the media view if you want.
Many people.
Broadcast Center. I want to thank the Yankee for being holding down the Variant News Broadcast Center. Located at a secret location in a state that can't be named in a time far gone.
Yeah,
Here's
something like that.
Yeah.
It's 50-second long video, so I'm going to hit it.
It's
Many
cute.
people
You can
have
play the
said
next
over
one
the
too if
years,
you want.
Why can't you just get over it and move on? And my answer has always been, why can't you always remember this? It's because it's important for us to remember. We learn from it. And until people show that they have learned from this, we will never forget. This is a part of who we are. It's not just a part of who we are as survivors and children of survivors, but as part of who we are as a nation. And this nation must never forget what it once did to its most vulnerable people.
and then I'm gonna load up another one here.
Yeah,
Doing
might as well.
Yukon First Nations land claim and self-government.
Well, we got the UN rights, which is YouTube Watch 9UU, and then there's the You Speak. Yeah, I think you got it right.
You want to do
Then
the
there's
Yukon first?
Yeah,
First,
nice place, Yukon.
This one's 3 minutes 31. Do you have
Oh,
the show
Oh,
notes?
okay. Well,
Or,
that must be the You Speak. If you want to play that one first, you can. But just from 1 minute to 2:55 of that.
newly
that's the
arrived
one that ends
settlers
in
had
4BP.
on Yukon First Nations people, and in 1902 he approached a lawyer in Whitehorse to write letters to the Government of Canada. He requested compensation for his people's loss of land and hunting grounds. But it was only in 1973 that the negotiations towards land claims began. On February 14, 1973, Elijah Smith and Yukon First Nation leaders presented the groundbreaking document, Together Today for Our Children Tomorrow, to then Canadian Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau. At this time, the Council for Yukon
Scared
Indians
Boys
was created to
father.
negotiate land claims on behalf of all Yukon First Nation people. The negotiations took 20 years. The Council for Yukon Indians, the Government of Canada, and the Government of Yukon signed the Umbrella Final Agreement in 1993. The Umbrella Final Agreement, or UFA, identified 8.6% of Yukon's land mass to become settlement land to be owned and managed by individual Yukon First Nations. The UFA also created a framework for negotiating the agreements and identified boards and committees in which all Yukoners can participate to provide recommendations to government. Between 1993 and 2005, 11 final agreements and the self-government agreements were created. The final agreements are land claim or modern treaty agreements that address land use and ownership, resource use and ownership, and financial compensation. The self-government agreements give First Nations the power to make their own laws and set up programs and services that benefit their citizens. Yukon's 11 final and self-government agreements represent almost half of all such agreements in Canada.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, it's kind of different in each place. I interviewed a source in the Northwest Territories, and it's that area and Nunavut got actually ceded by the government, and so he says they don't have the same tribal type of things going on. I think you've got one here on the tribal conflict here in British Columbia. The SHO one.
it ends with SHO? Yeah,
Yeah,
Military
mhm.
Chiefs.
Yeah, and this has to do with the pipeline protests in BC. And there's two groups. Well, it explains the whole thing pretty much. But I was saying in the Northwest Territory, they don't have this problem because the whole place is just for the Indigenous people.
We're doing a whole video. It's minute 45.
Yeah, I think it's worth it. You might want to mute the music. I don't know. You might want to mute the. Yeah, I forgot. I think just read it. We don't want to get a copyright strike.
BC Premier John Horgan says there's no formula for negotiating agreements with Indigenous groups. It's responsibility. You got an audio monitor going off.
Yeah, got it.
Grand Chief Ed John, top executive of the First Nations Summit, says there are clear divisions between hereditary chiefs and elected councils. Chiefs are the stewards of the land, while elected band councils are largely viewed as administrators of government policy. And that is that. Let me clean up some things here. What do we have next? We did the residential schools, didn't we? There's the Assembly of First Nations, United Nations Declarations on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples.
Yeah, yeah, that should work good.
There's two of them here.
Canada one. Got a couple Canada ones.
Assembly of First Nations, United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous. That's a minute long. And then we got another one that's 3 minutes and 53.
Yeah, that's the one. Sorry, I got confused. That's the one from 1 minute to about 3 minutes. That would be the best for that. It's
all
just
right, I'll do that one.
Oh boy.
So
is everybody having fun out there? Watch the Pro Bowl?
Is the first step Canada can take in truly recognizing who I am as a Métis woman.
UNDRIP affirms the rights of Indigenous peoples to create and manage their own affairs, whether this is in the education system, healthcare, or justice. This also includes to preserve, promote, and protect Indigenous lands, waters, traditions, cultures, and languages.
It is an instrument used to protect the ancestral inherent birthrights of Indigenous people around the world.
It's a tool that we can use to fight for everything that matters and everything we keep praying for.
The United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples will empower the future generations of all Indigenous peoples in Canada.
As a young Métis woman and mother, UNDRIP means that I have the right to be proud of my culture and the responsibility of teaching my son what it means to be Métis for future generations to carry on.
The Declaration is important to me because I want future Indigenous youth to feel pride where they come from and celebrate it in all their culture. My vision for Canada and the next 7 generations is a world where Indigenous people can walk down the street and not be discriminated against or racially profiled.
We gotta move it along. I think
that's good. That's good. I just wanted to show that, and also in my interview with the source in the North, he was very upbeat because he said the young people are becoming very engaged, and they're making their own productions. They're doing things like we're doing at Variant News, and they're using the internet to get their messages out independently. So the future always belongs to what the young people are doing, and that's that. Yeah. So it was really a good interview, Yankee. He was really positive about a lot of things. Seemed to be culturally, things seem to be working out well in the Northwest Territories and the other region up there with the self-determination and stuff. So it ain't all bad, people. Nope. And if you want to play this, you can. It just has to do with Canada honoring the United Nations treaty on Aboriginal rights.
Yeah, I've also got the U.S. Quickly.
Oh, you got a U.S. take?
The U.S. Adopted the American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People back in June of 2016. So there's links in the show notes on that.
Nice.
What do you want to move to next?
Oh, we could just move to the American Indian movement. I don't know what you've got on that.
Yeah, I've got just going to do a brief overview of that, and then there's a really good article here from HarvardPolitics.com. Compares U.S. and Canada's treatment of Indigenous peoples. So I thought it was a really good article.
Why don't you go through those for us?
And there's some other quick articles. There's a opioid settlement also in the U.S. with
move on to
Native American tribes.
the big brother in the South from the United States, and here's your update from the Yankees.
So, just some history on the American Indian movement. Militant American Indian Civil Rights Organization, AIM, founded in Minneapolis, Minnesota in 1968 by Dennis Banks, Clyde Bellecourt, Eddie Benton, Banai, and George Mitchell. Later, Russell Means became a prominent spokesman for the group. Its original purpose was to help Indians in urban ghettos who have been displaced by government programs that had the effect of forcing them from the reservations. Its goals eventually encompass the entire spectrum of Indian demands: economic independence, revitalization of traditional culture, the protection of legal rights, and most especially autonomy over tribal areas and the restoration of lands that they believe have been illegally seized. AIM was involved in many highly publicized protests. It was one of the Indian groups involved in the occupation 1969 to 71 of Alcatraz Island out there in San Francisco land. The March 1972 on Washington, D.C. to protest violation of treaties in which AIM members occupied the office of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and the takeover in 1973 of a site at Wounded Knee to protest the government's Indian policy.
Wounded Knee. Whoa. Yeah, things got ugly there.
And here's this article here from Harvard Politics. I'm just going to go a brief overview of some of the major points comparing the U.S. and Canada's treatment of Indigenous peoples. The current political climate. Many disenchanted Americans have expressed to various degrees of sincerity desire to escape to Canada if Trump gets elected. I'm crossing the border north, quoting. While the last electoral cycle and current pandemic have greatly amplified this sentiment, belies an underlying and ongoing American perception that the land up north of maple syrup and apologies is immune to many of the problems plaguing the U.S.
Not.
Symbolism at best. Superficially, Canada's policies appear much more progressive after Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau recognized the murder of Indigenous women and girls as genocide. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission was founded in 2008 to address the legacy of the Indian residential school system, and numerous government officials have offered apologies for historic wrongs committed. Then there's political self-determination. Canada's federal policies lag behind those of the U.S. in a key area, recognition of political autonomy or self-determination. In 1975, the U.S. government passed the Indian Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act. Under the treatment as state clause, the U.S. federal government recognizes Native American tribes' right to self-determination or sovereignty within their boundaries, with the autonomy to collect and spend their own tax dollars, provide their own education, judiciary, and law enforcement, and to self-govern without the interference of federal agents from the Bureau of Indian Affairs.
Yeah, baby.
On the other hand, the Canadian government still operates under the Indian Act of 1876, which defines First Nation citizenship and regulates the establishment and affairs of reservations.
That's right.
Economic development. Prior to the recognition of self-determination, tribal councils were run by volunteers. Now, U.S. federal funding can be used to employ citizens to run their own government and establish an office. These changes allowed some of our people to work exclusively on the tribal government programs full-time rather than having to do it on weekends and taking days off from work.
Nice.
In Canada, however, without political sovereignty, First Nations are still fighting for more land, direct access to revenues from resource extraction on their lands, and the diversification of income generation. And there's public welfare and social programs, and a few other things. But this is a great article.
Yeah, no doubt.
Those are some of the main ones.
Yeah, that's bang on, because the situation in the Northwest Territories, where they have been granted their autonomy in their territories, things are going really good. And then the Yukon's kind of in between, and BC's a mess. And it's just, there are so many different entities involved with this situation. But my first inkling that the United States was doing better than Canada came with the cynics, because they are recognized and have always been recognized in the United States, but they got disenfranchised. The Canadian government said, no, you're not even a tribe. You don't have no rights, nothing. You don't even exist. And that's why Richard went to all the trouble. Yeah, that's a good one, because we got dirt on our hands up there.
And then just finishing up with Indigenous or Native Americans in the U.S. This comes from theguardian.com. Native American tribes reached $590 million settlements over opioids devastation. Filing involves Johnson & Johnson and 3 big distributors as Attorney General for 8 states and D.C. closed the deal with Purdue. Johnson & Johnson is now banned from distributing opioids. That came past few months. Native American tribes have reached settlements over the toll of opioids totaling $590 million, with Johnson & Johnson the country's 3 largest drug distribution companies. The filing in Cleveland lays out the details of the settlements with Johnson & Johnson and AmerisourceBergen, Cardinal Health, and McKesson. All federally recognized tribes will be able to participate in the settlements even if they do not sue over opioids. Many tribes have been hit hard by the addiction and overdose crisis. The same companies are nearing the final stages of approval. Settlements worth $26 billion with state and local governments across the U.S.
Wow.
So, yeah.
There you go. I mean, there is progress being made on all fronts.
And now we move on to ESG. The ESG overview. And it's we're going to get into what it is. We also did a editorial on climate change recently.
Yeah, we discussed it. It was an editorial.
And this plays very much into it, what the ESG is doing.
And basically, the editorial was my take, and I think the Yankees as well, was that the climate change is such a big term that it's being used to mask all sorts of other things, like particularly pollution. And now we've come up with this other one, which is ESG, which sounds like another kind of, certain groups you're using climate change, particularly corporates, in the name of getting what they want. So educate us, brother.
So from Investopedia.com, what are environmental, social, and governance criteria? Environmental, social, and governance criteria are a set of standards for a company's operations that socially conscious investors use to screen potential investments. Environmental criteria consider how a company performs as a steward of nature. Social criteria examine how it manages relationships with employees, suppliers, customers, and the communities where it operates. Governance deals with the company's leadership, executive pay, audits, internal controls, and shareholder rights. ESG criteria are an increasingly popular way for investors to evaluate companies in which they might want to invest. Many mutual funds, brokerage firms, and robo-advisors now offer products that employ ESG criteria. ESG criteria can also help investors avoid companies that might pose a greater financial risk due to their environmental or other practices.
Well, that sounds all good and everything. I mean, a lofty goal, once again, everybody can agree, but who's controlling it or something? Is that what you got the dirt here?
Well, I've got a short interview with Klaus Schwab. He's one of them. He heads the World Economic Forum. He's one of the big players behind ESG. I mean, it's basically elites. The richest of the rich are behind ESG.
Well, that's a little bit of a marker to be suspicious.
George
then
Soros, Schwab, what have you?
The usual band of suspects. Okay. I'm
gonna do like a minute of this video. It just has I'm gonna actually get rid of the music. In this video, we'll learn what ESG is and why it's important to incorporate it into your decision making as a company. Are they talking in this? No. So we already went over that, and it refers to the 3 core factors in measuring corporate sustainability. The term is derived from the concept of triple bottom line.
Triple?
Also known as People, Planet, and Profits, PPP, which was introduced in the 90s. So this has been this has been brought together starting in the 90s. It's been
these smiling
around
people
for quite a long time, but it's now it's not, it's become very prominent.
Yeah.
It states that companies should focus on each of the 3 Ps and not just profits. The other 2 elements of people and planet are equally important for a commercial enterprise to be sustainable and profitable.
Okay.
This concept evolved into ESG. Today, it forms the foundation for doing business sustainably and responsibly. The environmental criteria looks at how a company contributes to and performs on environmental challenges, such as waste, pollution, greenhouse gases, deforestation, and climate, etc. The social criteria looks at how a company treats its people. It looks at human capital management, diversity and equal opportunity, working conditions, health and safety, and misleading sales, etc. The governance criteria looks at how a company is managed. I mean, that's basics of it.
Yeah.
But it's very hard for small businesses to adhere to all these regulations. So they're going to get even more complicated. You know, you need a team of lawyers. You need.
So it's like to meet all the So you need all the criterion in order for people to go, oh, this is a good investment or a safe environmental investment or sustainable investment or something. But you got to go through now. Robo-advisors, is that like automated AI financial advisors or what?
Yes.
Oh, God. Now I can't sleep. I'm not going to sleep tonight.
And then I've got a quick video with Klaus Schwab, and we'll finish up.
Okay.
But there's some good stuff in here. There's also this Odyssey link you can check out from Tim Pool with Jack Posobiec. He had some words on ESG, but we're not going to show that. And there's also these 2 other links from Odyssey. One, I believe, is a full book, and the other is a presentation.
I see.
And it goes into very painful detail of ESG. So I'm finishing that up, but I'm looking through all that.
Yeah, we're going to probably have
check
to
it out if you want.
Probably have to come back to this again on a future show because this seems like another evolving question.
We're going to start. We're going to start at 3:15 here.
All right.
And Klaus Schwab goes over the basics between what was and what now ESG is bringing to the forefront. And I've got to find it here. What does it say? 3:15. Here we go. And poor old Klaus is muted. Let me just get him unmuted.
By Brian Moynihan, and of course for audit companies, and you, Maha, you contributed substantially to it. I just want to remind, to be very short, we talk not just about metrics here and adding something to the reporting process. We are talking about the substantial shift which is taking place, which is the transition of an economy which is more based.
You have a monitor on?
Based on shareholders' value to an economy which is more based on stakeholder responsibility.
So that's the basic of from shareholder to stakeholder. Shareholder was the old model.
Yeah, sorry about that, Charles.
And stakeholders, the new model, the corporate governance. So basically, like McDonald's was the old one, the old model, and now with ESG and stakeholder, McDonald's is seen as bad because it's right. Well, I mean, it's not the healthiest food you can eat. It's not that good for you. So that's where everything is moving. Companies like McDonald's, what have you. Companies, the food, things along those lines. It's just this massive Overwatch group.
Well, it seems
monitoring everything and creating more complicated, very complex regulation for companies.
Well, it seems like an extension. Like I know here, and you might be having the same experience in. If we're going back to video, we might as well go back to camera view.
Well, I just want to finish up with this video real quick. Give me another 20, 30 seconds.
Dude, I'll give you the world,
metrics are walking the
Klaus.
To add, I would say, a concrete dimension to the stakeholder responsibility. I also would like to mention that this work is part of our Great Reset initiative.
Oh, the Great
World
Reset.
Economic Forum at the moment is mobilizing all its communities, also in preparation of our annual meeting in 21, related to the definition and design of policies which we have to follow in the post-corona era. We all know we need...
So that's the basics of it, but that's Klaus. Klaus is one of the main guys. World Economic Forum, ESG, the Great Reset. He's been going on in great length now for a few years now.
Right on.
So that's that.
Wow. Yeah, I think that just something you said earlier about small businesses and a trend here in Canada, particularly in the cities, large food chains, like here we have like the Cactus Club and different ones that have like 36 restaurants. They're doing okay, but the small guys are really having trouble. And one of the factors I would imagine would be, like, if you have 36 restaurants, you can afford to have somebody that's just doing all the regulatory paperwork and all this profile stuff. But if if you're running a restaurant, you're probably doing 8 jobs already, and that sort of thing makes it harder. So in general, we're seeing a trend in all fields. I think, like McDonald's is what keyed me into it. I mean, they're going to survive no matter what. But also like large chain restaurants like Red Lobster down there, or what you got, Red Robin, and.
Well, we also covered New York City, then banning gas stoves. I mean, that's part of the ESG movement.
They'll probably make it.
That. That's where governments are working with the ESG. Regulation like that.
In New York City, I would
change.
Yeah, sorry, but like in New York City, I imagine that a high-profile restaurant, they could afford to spend the extra $5,000 to make it environmentally correct. But Tony with the freaking pizza shop, anyway. We're moving on.
We have the Coots border stuff.
We got a lot of links here, but we decided we're just really going to just play the recent one. Update here. I'm in Western Canada. I can tell you what's going on. They blocked the border crossing at the Sweetwater, Montana, Coots, Alberta. A major thing, and they eventually went away. More or less, they left the lane open. There's been other sporadic outbreaks, and there is an ongoing occupation of Ottawa, which is causing a lot of mayhem for the citizens, and some of the citizens have been verbally abused to do with their ethnicity. But we do have something from 3 days ago on the situation.
Yeah, let me get the media viewer.
In Coots and southern Alberta. And there's other links if you want. There's a long one at the very end, which basically really, I imagine, states the trucker side of it. I didn't watch the whole thing, but it's from Rebel, I think it is. Anyway, this one, I'm not sure who it's from. Somebody.
This is from inside the story.
Some incredible developments here as the truckers have finally feel like their message has been heard, and in a tremendous showing of good faith, they are reopening one lane each way to provide unimpeded access through the town of Coots and across the border in both ways. Now, that doesn't mean that the protest is over, but it signals what we hope to be ongoing cordial efforts to address the concerns of the people that have been involved in the movement down here at Canuck.
Right now, we are just holding the line. We're holding the line with our brothers and uncles and fathers down there that are looking for freedom for all of Canada. We're holding the line with Ottawa, and we're fighting for Canada's freedoms. There's getting to be so many rules where there's just one switch flipped, and all of a sudden you don't have choices as a Canadian anymore. That is scary to me. And I want my kids to be able to do sports and to be free. I believe all mandates need to be totally removed. There are European countries like Denmark that have totally removed all measures. I believe that COVID.
So that's it from inside the story. Moving on. Let me clean some things up here because I've got too many windows.
Yeah, okay.
Open.
I'll just give a little update too on Ottawa situation. It's costing over $1 million a day for the city of Ottawa, the taxpayers of Ottawa, because of the occupation. And to me, it's kind of like, well, make your point, make sure it's heard, and move on. But it's causing a lot of disturbance. Even some of the citizens are trying to get a class action against them for keeping them awake all night, and also say there has been some desecration of monuments. Terry Fox Monument, in particular, a guy that went all the way across Canada on one leg to raise money and awareness, and the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier dedication, which you're supposed to be respectful there, and people just hanging out drinking beer. So, like with anything, these people have made their point, and it's actually a good point, and we'll see how it plays out. But there hasn't been any violence whatsoever, in typical Canadian fashion, and so there you go on that.
All right, we're going to move to the Olympics. And this what's really cool about this video is the announcer's face in the studio as the porter on the ground there in the Beijing Olympics, Winter Olympics, gets accosted by a guard.
Oh, my gosh.
In China there. Dutch journalist covering the Winter Olympics in Beijing was accosted and dragged away by Chinese guards mid-broadcast on Friday outside the game's opening ceremonies. Let's check out the video. It's very entertaining. And let me make sure this is queued up. Let me get the volume jacked up so we can rock and roll.
We gaan naar China, naar onze correspondent Sjoerd ten Daas. Sjoerd, jij staat vlakbij het stadion. Wat gaat China de komende uren laten zien?
Ja, 哎，稍等一会儿，往前再新闻联播。Ja, we worden hier inmiddels, je merkt het al,
He's speaking Mandarin too,
we zijn
I
net ook
think.
al bij een ander gebied weggezet. Dus ik vrees dat wij later even bij je moeten terugkomen. Ja, dat kan halen, ja.
Dat denk ik ook, Sjoerd. We gaan door met het volgende.
Oh my God.
Ja.
Look on her face.
Dan gaan we inderdaad
And
door met het volgende.
they just cut away. So that's not good PR right there. That's not good Olympic PR, I don't think. Accosting reporters on the Olympics, but there it is. And then we've got the fat panda, the fat Olympic panda. I really like this. I was trying to find. I found a video in Beijing, Chinese people were lining up, like, I don't know, it was ridiculous. It was like 2 miles long, 3 miles long to get this Olympic fat panda, but I couldn't find the video. If I find it for next week's show, I'll get it. But what I did find was out of NBC Chicago, and you can at least see what the fat panda looks like. This thing is selling like hotcakes. I call it the fat panda. But this is everywhere everywhere you go at the Beijing Winter Olympics. Canuck, you even sent me an email with this is the fat panda is even on the Olympic gold medals, right?
No, but they handed
it was up above, it was mounted on the top of it or something.
What happened was I was watching the Olympics last night because we get it on CBC, and one of our people, a woman, won a bronze medal in the speed skating, long haul. And so they hand her this thing that looked really scary. And I was like, what the heck? And it's not the medal. They just give them one of these things. And now we've been informed that they're actually a thing that's selling all over the place. But it's kind of scary. Look it up on the internet somehow.
Well, I'm just going to do this video real quick, less than a minute. These are some of the items you can get inside one of the official Beijing Winter Olympic stores.
Oh, boy.
As I stated, the fat panda is sold out. Big Duen, the event's official mascot, is the star of the show when it comes to Olympic merchandise.
Oh my God.
Known as the cheerful panda, frat panda, Big Dwen Sports something. And the galactic suit helps Bing move on ice and is supposed to be a nod to the future and technology. Several items are inspired by traditional Chinese culture, like a plush lantern, which is also the official mascot of the Beijing Paralympics. Items also feature the official logo of the games, which is boring compared to the fat panda. And, I don't know, authentic Chinese pots. I don't know. That was weird. But that's it, Fat Panda. The Fat Panda is sold out, but I'm going to get my hands on one. Eventually, they're making more. They're going to be making millions and millions more. So I'm going to figure out where to get one, but I definitely want one.
We got to get some. But that thing, the one they hand out, well, all you got to do is watch the Olympics, and somebody's going to win an event, and then they're going to get one of these things. So there you go. Watch the Olympics.
And then also, we're going to do the Lunar New Year. We're going to recognize that.
Well, I've got it. Yeah, well, now, this for those of you that don't know what the heck a Lunar New Year is,
your video. Get your video back on so
all
people
right,
can see
all
your
right.
mug.
I can see me now. Okie dokie. So, in the what's called the Chinese New Year, more technically the Lunar New Year, which is celebrated and noted in many cultures, particularly Asia, it's when the sun is in Aquarius and the new moon is also in Aquarius on the new moon, and that starts a cycle of 12 years of animals. This year is the year of the tiger. We just came out of the year of the ox, by the way. All right, here we go. The tiger is considered the king of all animals in Chinese mythology and culture. Dr. Yin says a zodiac sign, it symbolizes power, courage, confidence, leadership, and strength. Good on. It is also known to be an animal that expels all evil. Because of this, there's often a sense of fear around the tiger, and it can be associated with destruction. Dr. Kwan says, however, it can also be associated with good luck, bravery, and good health and well-being. In terms of the tiger year, it's associated with vitality and strength. Oh, boy, I like that.
Nice.
Are you ready? Okay, a little bit more. I just want to get into this. People believe in the year of the tiger, blah, blah, blah. Now, the calendar is based on two systems. This is information, it's education time here. The heavenly stems and the earthly stems. The earthly branches are comprised of 12 zodiac signs. Each represent an animal, blah, blah, blah. You've all heard rat, ox, tiger, etc., etc. Less commonly known as zodiac's interaction with the heavenly stems. And the heavenly stems are comprised of the numbers 1 to 10, each one representing one of the 5 elements of Taoism: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. So this year is the year of the water tiger. And it's debated what all that means, but it's a fact. Okay.
And we've got any word in the chat. Going back to ESG, said stakeholders, S-T-A-K-E, will be holding your stake, S-T-E-A-K.
Ooh. Is that like
also
Dracula?
Mentions, what?
Like Dracula, you got the stake in the... Never mind.
Yeah, there's a flat earther walking and cross-country skiing to the North Pole right now on his own. Canadian flat earther. Is that the
cool.
link? Destination Hyperborea?
No, we'll have to follow that. That's for sure.
I don't know what this is going to load. Hopefully, live tracker. Zem is traveling from the 40th parallel to the North Pole, a journey of more than 3,000 miles. The route begins in the United States, across the entirety of Saskatchewan and Nunavut, Canada, before the final push to the pole. So there you have it. Thanks, Anyword, for the link. Appreciate that.
Breaking, baby.
And moving on, we're going to be talking about Justin Sun in the crypto updates that we have for the show.
Oh, got crypto? Okay.
And he's been running the Tron crypto platform and has been accused of a governance attack on DeFi lender Compound.
Ooh.
Coming from CoinDesk.com. Justin behind DLive, linking up with BitTorrent a couple years ago.
Right.
DLive came together with BitTorrent, and Justin Sun was instrumental in getting that done. And on to the article. Crypto think tank GFX Labs as a prominent whale may be attempting to swing a vote in his favor. Members of crypto think tank GFX Labs governance division are ringing alarm bells that a prominent large investor may be attempting to leverage large sums of capital to manipulate on-chain governance for a decentralized finance protocol. In a tweet on Friday's GFX Twitter handle called attention to a massive loan of Compound's governance token, COMP, taken out by billionaire Justin Sun. Here's the tweet. An unplanned TUSD proposal has been proposed to set TUSD's collateral factor to 80%, currently 0. Justin Sun Tron recently borrowed 90K comp from Comp Finance and currently has 102K comp in his alt. He has it set up for voting, but everyone should keep an eye out. On-chain governance of DeFi protocols often token-weighted, and while one GFX representative personally characterized the loan as a governance attack, there is nothing explicitly prohibiting users from taking out loans to vote on proposals they back. Sun, founder of the Tron platform and now Granada's ambassador and permanent representative of the World Trade Organization, is an active DeFi user, and his primary address, worth over $1 billion, is widely tracked among on-chain sleuths. Sun didn't respond to requests for comment by press time.
As usual.
And then we move on to India.
Oh, India.
Coming from CoinDesk again, India's tough crypto stance has a silver lining.
All right.
How a central bank digital currency meant to stifle crypto could end up benefiting it. When the Indian government this week announced plans to tax cryptocurrency and launch a central bank digital currency, the news drew a mixed response. Some in the Indian crypto community gave it a glass half full reading, while others reported their drinking vessels as half empty. The former were relieved Narendra Modi's government didn't ban cryptocurrencies as was previously threatened. The latter were angered that they'd now have to shave 30% off each crypto trading profit they make. Both missed the bigger picture, one that goes beyond India to the wider world. That is, in betting on a digital monetary future, the financial authorities of the world's second most populous nation are joining those of other nations to hasten the arrival of a multi-currency international monetary system. Whether they want that outcome or not, in that world, cryptocurrencies will inevitably occupy a key place. There are important messages here for the U.S. government, the steward of the current monocurrency international monetary system, which, according to a report in Barron's last week, is viewing the need for new crypto regulations as a matter of national security. Wow. How the U.S. approaches this national security issue will be key, with an openness that encourages a global free market model of financial innovation. Taxation versus legitimacy. First, let's acknowledge that India's move imposing taxation on cryptocurrencies and postponing a more detailed regulatory step that could yet include some kind of prohibition is less than ideal for the domestic crypto industry's short-term outlook.
Interesting.
And CBDCs as crypto's adrenaline boost, it's fair to assume the Indian government, like China's, believes developing a CBDC will curtail the expansion of decentralized cryptos such as Bitcoin. There's already overwhelming greater demand for national security such as theirs, the thinking goes. So making those government monies digital will neutralize the only appealing competitive advantage of non-national digital currencies. This is a flawed zero-sum thinking. It assumes there's some fixed pie of demand for currencies, and when usage of one currency rise, the amount tapped by the other must fall. It fails to foresee the second-round effects that a rush to CBDCs will have on the wider crypto ecosystem. How will CBDCs boost crypto? First, once digital fiat-bearer instruments, be they CBDCs or stablecoins, are used for payments inside other blockchain-based services such as supply chain management, gaming, or non-fungible tokens, it will boost their wider crypto ecosystem, the decentralized metaverse of the Web3 as it goes mainstream. So basically, India issue, if they when they issue the CBDC, it's just going to be used as a stable coin. It's just going to be used as a way to move between cryptos.
Oh,
and
that's different than our Canadian proposal, which is just to have a digital-based Canadian currency.
Well, I mean, that's what the government. Yeah, man, that's why the government's creating a CBDC, but it's going to be used as like a stable coin, and it's going to be used as a go-between. You want to go between.
Oh, I see.
Ethereum or Bitcoin, you could use the CBDC to hold your money and then swap it for Bitcoin or whatever. And there you have it. You can.
Wow.
The government can now tax you because it's at the
that's inevitable.
DC level, what have you, at any level, but it just becomes another digital asset.
Yeah, I suppose.
But it's a good article, and we are done. We are done with the main topics, and
we're moving right along today.
Move to Bizarro News. I know everybody's been waiting for this.
Yeah.
And we're going to start off with yet another Bitcoin-related
it's
news
related.
item.
Yeah, it's related. This one has got a lot of people pondering. Got the old WTF vibe to it. So
from Vice.com, the plan to put Bitcoin in mouse DNA with a genetically engineered virus. BitMouse DAO has exactly 2 investors and almost no money. But they do have a wild idea. And there's a cute little white mouse.
Yeah.
A new decentralized autonomous organization, DAO, wants to genetically engineer mice so they can carry Bitcoin inside them. BitMouse DAO launched on January 25th. As of this writing, it has exactly 2 investors. One investor who put in 0.01 ETH commented LMAO, while the other who put in the same amount said crazy. The scheme, according to the DAO's pitch, is to experiment with genetic technology to put Bitcoin inside a mouse. And once they get it done for a mouse, they'll then put it in a pig, and then they'll put it in a human, I think. But bit disturbing. I don't know where this is going to go. But
that's why I have cats. I don't like mice. Boy, somebody get pissed off if their cat
they're
killed the
literally
mouse.
going to be embedding the private key. The private key will be encoded into its DNA, and with cryptos, you basically everything's done with the private key. So that's the key. No pun intended. But
I think the animal rights people might get involved in this. The PETA people. Or whatever they're called.
And then moving on, this is a nice one. We got Super Grandma
here. Go Canada.
It's just a bit disturbing. It's extremely violent, and viewer discretion is advised. Yeah,
well, this just goes to show you don't mess with old Canadians.
Don't mess with Super Grandma. Here we go. Here's this guy's trying to roll out with like $200 worth of food.
Yeah.
Probably $300 with inflation.
Yep. And now, wait a minute.
Yeah. When? Huh? You gonna pay for it?
Grandma comes in.
Come on, baby.
Manhandles him.
You're not gonna take this kind of bullshit.
Goddamn thief, she says.
Yeah, right.
Come on, bud. Come on.
Get out.
All right.
Get out.
Take your
Yeah. Yeah.
He probably packed his bag. He probably packed his bag with a bunch of stuff.
The dog is going after. The dog's not happy about it either.
Let's just go back to the point of impact. I want to see it one more time.
Come on, no, this is full takedown. This is Canada, baby.
Here we go.
Come on now.
She comes in. She's looking at him.
Vancouver Island.
Contact. Just manhandle him. Just Yeah.
Yep, hockey mom.
Goddamn thief, she says.
She's probably hockey mom.
Come on, bud.
So there
Don't
you
mess-
have it.
Yep.
Super Grandma saves the day.
Oh, I like the dog too. Oh man, that is.
And then
That is now. You see that? That's Canada, dude. That's Campbell River, British Columbia, out on Vancouver Island. And it's like this woman just said, "Nope. You know that's not going to happen." You know. So there you
anyone
go.
asks in the chat, did they say if there is going to be a finite supply on the CBDC? And I'm not sure.
I
know. Going back to the article on India.
Right.
I did not read anything on it being finite.
Woo.
I can guarantee you in the U.S. that they're going to want to continue to print money whenever they want from the Federal Reserve, so it'll probably be infinite there.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on, Spider-Man comic sales for a record 3.36 million. Mike Zeck's artwork for page 25 from Marvel Comics Secret Wars number 8 brings the first appearance of Spidey's black suit. The symbiote suit would eventually lead to the emergence of the character Venom. This is the ground news. Let me actually try to load. There we go. We'll at least get the excerpts from the comic. Well,
it's a lot
how
of money.
long is this?
Oh.
I don't know. I don't want an ad. I don't know what the hell is going on.
2.8 million. Do I hear 2.9?
It's Spider-Man.
We're gonna sell it at 2.8 million.
That's a lot of money for a piece of paper, man. Right.
Oh, well, this one's 2.8. They're saying 3.3. I don't know what's going on.
No.
But finishing it up, this is San Francisco at its best. You get all kinds of weird tech stuff out of San Francisco. And here, the owners of a restaurant employing 4 robot servers reveal the drawbacks and explain why humans are crucial.
And the hamburger machine, I think it's in there too. That one you're going to see around a lot.
Oh, shit. I got to turn the music off. We're definitely getting copyright strikes on SnoozTube. But there's the burgers getting automated. They got onions, tomatoes, lettuce. I don't know. It's crazy.
I'll bet you Burger
Some
King,
woman
McDonald's,
stuffing her face.
McDonald's, Burger King, they're all going to have these in a few years.
So you should move to San Francisco if you want to check this out.
They're booked solid too. Are they going to show the servers? The servers are creepy.
I grew up flipping burgers. My parents had a restaurant. I've made a lot of burgers in my life, making that many burgers, folks, all the time.
Yeah.
There are a lot of missed opportunities to make things a little better for everybody. Right now, we have a system with 350 sensors, about 20 computers, 50 actuators, and
now this case, I'll bet you
all
the burger's like $50 or some stupid thing like that. Being San Francisco, but they're booked solid.
What we have is one of the most advanced culinary instruments out there. It does some pretty cool stuff. One, it makes literally the freshest burger ever. The first step after
they're doing a lot of that in the Olympics is all robotic, right? All the
in other words, not the
food and
pre-sliced
serving.
variety that we might be used to.
It might be. I'm not sure. Oh, we're going to get nailed now. Goddamn music. We got to get to the... don't the robots come out, don't they?
I think so. Yeah, well, at the Beijing Olympics, they're doing that like a lot.
I don't think this one has the actual robots that serve it to you.
Oh, well.
Just not showing. But everything is automated. There it is. Here's the robots. They're not in the video, though. These are the little robots that they have that once it automates the process of serving the food, they come out with these trays.
That's too creepy.
And they run into all these problems with these robots.
No doubt. Now, the burger machine makes sense to me, but the robots, I can do without the robots, okay? You know, I'm even willing to go.
Like people with it, customers that wear lots of jewelry, the robots run away from them. It creates some kind of interference, I think, with the radio frequencies or something.
Well, that's not going to work.
And so it doesn't go well for people that wear a lot of jewelry.
What if you have like a plate in your leg or something? You won't be served. They won't serve you. I don't know.
There's also one robot named Amy that chatted too much to guess, so they had to switch her off. They had to switch her interactive functions off. She just kept on babbling.
There's always one mouthy robot in every crowd, I guess. Oh my gosh.
But that looks creepy.
I'll bet you
And
Mark
they put this
will
weird tinsel around it. That's just not right.
I'll bet you Zipperberg likes that place. Marky
I don't know.
Zipperberg.
If I was in San Francisco, though, I'd go.
Would you?
I'd check it out, yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
I love doing that.
I'd do a live stream.
Well, no, they would have to. That would be the ticket. I'll go if you do a live stream. Oh, yeah. We should get Canuck and Yankee back in San Francisco. That'd be fun. All right, next year.
But that's it. We belted it through.
We did.
Record time.
Yeah, we did. Killed it.
So.
Time to spare. Well, it just goes to show you. But we had some pretty big topics. I encourage people to be aware of the Indigenous thing, but also, the topic on the protests. It's very interesting. And, like I say, it just comes to a point where you make your point and you go home. Only thing I ever went to was a 1969 March on Washington about the Vietnam War. But we just went there, hung out for a couple hours, and then got out of there. Got tear gas leaving, but it wasn't our fault. But it wasn't like, anyhow. So what we got something? Do we have any idea what we're doing next? We got Super Bowl. I don't know.
Yeah, we're gonna. I'm gonna eat wings on air. I think.
Okay.
Live.
Well,
I'll get some wings.
I'm having a party.
Ranch dressing or something, and I'll. Yeah.
I'll have the big screen TV with the NFL Game Pass going on in the background like I did for last week. Was it last week? No. Yeah, last week. Whenever the guys were playing football. I've lost all time and space, which is good. I must be getting enlightened. Oh, we're back to the full view. Well, we're going to thank you all for tuning in. Record time, a little under 40 minutes, hour and 10 minutes this time, but that's all good.
Well, we did that streaming video too, which is really good. That was 20 minutes.
Well, then it's perfect.
So we started early.
Well, there you go. We started early, ended early. See, that's what tigers do. See, you're the tiger dog. What did you say you were? A mouse or something? No.
No, it's the year of the pig.
Oh, okay. That was good. Pigs are good.
Yeah. But it's all about gluttony.
Well, it's an important facet of human nature, dude. Ask any restaurant owner. We got a lot of. Just quickly though, we're working on a few things for the variant news streamings. We're going to be having some different shows this year. This summer, we're probably going to be involved with a venture that I'm doing here in the Kootenay area, southeastern British Columbia. We're going to be holding events, and pretty much decided that we can only sell about 50 tickets because the regulations around the facilities we're using, and also we don't know what's happening with the restrictions. But we are going to be live streaming it to a number of platforms, and we're going to follow the same model as what GoFundMe did. They used to charge 5%, and now they take donations, and they're getting a lot more donations, and it makes it so that we can stream to everybody. And if you want to donate, if you can, that'd be great. So that's coming up. Also, the Yankee and I are working on the systems for live streaming from the street. We did one last week. Was it this week?
February 1st.
Yeah,
beginning of the week. Around here, we did some in Nelson, and then
we tried it out.
Port Town or wherever.
Oh yeah, the little Balfour Beach thing. I'm going to be upgrading my systems, getting a stronger smartphone, and
I'm going to be looking into building a antenna for cellular phones to go you'll need to have a 1/8 inch, the audio jack. But I'm going to look at building an antenna for you, and if it works well, I'll definitely sell it on my website.
Yeah, that's a bit of
the production process down, and it works well.
It's a bit of a conundrum for me right now because most of the phones I'm looking at do not have headphone jacks. It's just USB-C. So if anybody knows anything about that stuff, contact us very news because we need to upgrade. So there you go.
All right. So
Year of the Tiger. It's the year of the tiger.
It's the eye of the tiger.
What's the year?
We're on. No, it's the eye of the tiger. We're on YouTube, so we can't play that song. Otherwise, we could.
I know, but I can sing. But I can sing. It's the year of the tiger. I mean, they're not going to ban me for that.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's end the stream. Thanks everybody for your support. Anywhere. Thanks for hanging out in the chat. Thanks for that link to that guy, cross country skier. That's pretty cool stuff.
We're going to watch that guy.
Sending that our way.
I'll get my source in the north to watch for him.
See everybody on the flip side. Take care.
Yeah, take care.
My tree.